Hey, it's Wayne Pernell, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Ask Dr. Pete, Ask Me Anything. Look, I've been getting some amazing questions coming in. This one comes from a very dear friend of mine who asks, I'm going to keep his name out of it, but right now he's asking, how do I communicate with a bully? That's his question. How do I communicate with a bully? And it means that he and sometimes each of us, we are in relationship with somebody who is trying to be overly controlling. And it comes across as if they're being mean. And they might be overtly mean. And so you have to determine, are you in a toxic relationship? And if so, what is it that you are conceding to? What are you allowing into your life? I've heard it called tolerance. I've heard it called a bunch of things. I use the term concession. What are you conceding for your own life? What are you saying? Well, you know what? That's okay. And you're letting people treat you a certain way because you don't want to make waves, because you value what you think the relationship is. And so really it's there's no clean answer to how to communicate with a bully, because bully could be defined in so many ways. Sometimes it is, here's this toxic person, how do I communicate with them? And it's like, it depends on what your goal is for the relationship. A lot of times people are in relationship in the hopes of changing the relationship or changing the other person. I'm going to learn how to communicate with this bully in order to change them and make them stop being a bully. It's like, it's not who they are. They're never going to be like the Grinch, who suddenly gets this inspiration and understands, and the Grinch's heart grows, however many times its original size. It's like, that doesn't happen. What does happen is you set rules. You set rules. You need to set boundaries. What are you okay with? What are you not okay with? um, I had in my life the need to set some verbal boundaries with some people, and it was one of the reasons that I came up with the watchword list for my first book called Choosing Your Power. And I have 10 watchwords, and the first watchword in that is why, right? And I just became allergic to the word why. And it's not like you should never ask why, it's a watchword. Because if you're reflecting, it's like, well, why is that important to me is different than why did you do that? And that's where the subtlety of bullying can come in. It's like, I didn't realize a question of me could be a bully, could be a bullying kind of thing. It's like, well, it's condescending, it puts you in a one down. It puts you in a place of having to explain yourself. Why did you do that? What? And look, we're coming into holiday gatherings. Sometimes, whether you're meeting with family or not, it's the example of, well, why did you bring potato salad instead of green beans? Um, and it's like, there's no good answer for that, right? It's like, I brought green beans now, I can't really change it, or why are there, this is a good one. Why are there dishes in the sink? And it's like, well, do you really want the answer? Like, I took a dish, I put it in the sink, and gravity kept it there. That's not the answer that most people are looking for. And so, really, I make people ask me different questions instead of why. It's like, are you asking me if the sink could be cleared? Is that what you're asking? It's like, yeah, can you clear the sink? Oh, well, that's different than why are there dishes in the sink? Because why is kind of a blame and shame kind of question. So I listen for things like that, and I set new boundaries and I create new rules. And it's not that you must never ask me a why question. It's that I will reframe it so that if you ask me a why question, I will reframe it so that you are asking me now a question that makes sense to me, in order that I not respond with the first word being because. Why are there different dishes in the sink? Because I put one there. Because I didn't get around to it. Sorry. And then it's a right blame and shame, and you're in this apologetic space. Why are you wearing this blue check shirt? It's like, well, because it's like, hey, what do you like about that blue flannelly shirt? It's like, I love that it's warm. And it could be anything, right? It could be anything. So think about where you're tolerating people pushing you around or telling you that, this isn't right for their world. It's like, that's fine. It's right for my world. And it doesn't have to be tug of war, and it doesn't have to be right fighting. And that's where people get into trouble. I'm more right than you. You're not going to go to a debate to change the other side's mind. Take a look at the political circus we've all come through, um, and notice that there's nobody shows up to a debate to have their mind changed. Oh, I wonder what the other side will say. That's going to be really interesting. Right? And so you think about somebody who's in bully space or in right fighting space, the only goal is to be right. And so what you do with that, there's a martial arts axiom that I use, which is enter when pulled or turn when pushed. Right? So enter when pulled, and it's sort of like, why are there dishes in the sink? Grr. And you're being pulled into, that you're being sucked in to answer this question, why? And you're supposed to go, well, because, or uh, uh, I'm sort of trying to, right now, I'll just tell you what jammed me up. I was trying to give you that response plus another response that was in my head at the same time. And that's what jammed up looks like. So we go to this because response or not, right? So instead of, well, why? Because, you go why, and you reframe it. So you drop the tug of war. If it's a tug of war, you drop the rope, and then there's a different game you're playing, right? So, oh, you mean, and you reframe the question. The other thing about debate is, well, I should be able to do XYZ. You've done this. I should be able to do this. And it's like, well, no, right? It's like, just because this and this and this happened doesn't mean that this and this and this also needs to happen. So um, that's where you enter when pulled, and you go, wow, and just acknowledge the other person's feelings. Sounds like you're kind of frustrated about this whole thing. And is it that you really need this to feel better? Just curious, right? So enter with curiosity. The other thing that bullies do is that they will attack with calling you names, calling you, they'll make you look bad in public, or they will start to build you up and then undercut what they've just said. And the best thing to do with that is just to recognize that is not a reflection of you. That is a reflection of them. It is a reflection of their toxic style. It is their insecurity that's showing up, and it's their need, their deep seated need to be better than, when deep down they are not. And that's where turn when pushed comes from. So the example that I use is, you could be called all kinds of things, from the, well, just, all the bad words, right? You could be called any of that. And here's the thing, if someone called you a purple spotted leprechaun, right, then, you're nothing but and it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. right? Because if you're not that, why would you respond to it? And and so if someone calls you something, recognize that that again is their insecurity. And it's like, well, does it fit or doesn't it? Is it that I am that? Because they're trying to get you to feel insecure. And so I use the very kind of bizarre out there purple spotted leprechaun kind of it's like, are you that? No. So why respond? So if someone calls you a B word or an MF word or something like that, it's like, are you? It's like someone pushing on you. Just turn when pushed, because let it go by. It's not you, it's them. So the way to respond to a bully is just really to reframe what they're saying and to set verbal boundaries for them and to bring back to the focus what the true thing you want to focus on is, right? So I watched it was years ago. I had some couples work, and there was a dissolution of the marriage, and at one point the husband or former husband to be says, you're just a bad mother, like totally disparaging. And it's like, this could have gotten really bad in terms of name calling. You're bad at this, well, you're bad at that, well, it's like scorekeeping. You suck at this, well, you suck worse at that, well, right? And it gets really bad. So the goal then is to go, well, none of that matters. That's interesting, because you're really here to talk about the kids and the kids' best interest. And it's like, just to be able to go, yeah, none of that matters, right? It's like, interesting opinion, not accurate, but interesting. Again, it's a reflection of that person who said it. And so to put it back that way, it's an interesting opinion. We're actually here to talk about the care of the children. Awesome, right? Because that's a different focus. And it's not it's not poke and I'll poke back harder. So those are some tips for you, how to handle a bully. I hope that's helpful. I hope that makes sense. And if you have more questions or comments about this, hey, I'm here. Ask Dr. P. Thanks for joining me.